the sun on my face.
What do you want to say about this? So you want to make a story? You want to tell a story on YouTube?
On the tubes?
You want to tell us a story?
On the YouTubesies?
Sure.
I mean, I do. I wasn't expecting it to.
This moment, this exact
moment,
second.
this is just me journaling, so I don't forget any details, so I can write about them later.
Where are we right now?
We are in Les Saints.
Yeah.
Which one's this? Terre Haute? I don't know how to say it.
Terre du Haut? I don't know.
Hoot.
We're in Le Bourg, Anchorage.
I should definitely look up this year.
This is part of the story.
This is part of the story.
Okay.
Okay.
That's Guadeloupe over there. We crossed some treacherous seas to get here. There's some calypso music going on over there. This is us, hanging out, telling the story.
Yeah, we're on our third mooring ball here. We just moved in closer. We got lucky, so hopefully this one will be a little less rolly. We definitely should have shot video of me cooking this morning. That was interesting.
Roly-poly.
It was very roly-poly, but we got it done. It was delicious.
Good job.
Thanks.
It's delicious.
Delicious.
Eggs and potatoes.
Eggs and potatoes, our staple. Our breakfast staple. The two things I can keep from rotting on this boat.
That's right.
Yes, that fridge is underwhelming. But, yeah. It's been pretty great. It's kind of messy in here, though. I'm a little embarrassed.
It's okay. That's our story. We're messy.
We're messy.
Bye-bye.
Excuse me.
With our microwave in the background?
Was I going to do the move?
Oh, you want to do the move?
I think that's
Wait,
what the
go
fellas
this way?
want, right?
Oh, you got to do the move? Okay, here. The fellas want that.
I don't know how to make it look cute, though.
Go higher.
Higher how?
You got to go up where the camera is. You got to really bend it.
Help.
Wait, where is it?
There we go.
Oh.
Oh, hey.
That's weird. What are we doing? Prima Barcavela. This episode is sponsored by Field Bar. It's not really.
It's not.
But this thing's freaking sweet.
It's so cool.
I know,
A
like-
friend brought us that
Yeah.
from Africa. It's like the most posh little personal cooler I've ever seen in my life, and I cannot wait for it to warm up and use it.
And now we're going to use it to make the camera higher. We just wrapped up our Guadeloupe summary. This is kind of going to be the intro that I'm going to put at the beginning, though. I wanted to mention that we are going to splice in photos and videos, so it's not just going to be seeing us as pretty as this one is right here. We are going to show like places that we went on this adventure. So if you watch the audio of this on YouTube, check that out. Please like and subscribe because we might do this more often.
Yeah, we'd like to.
We'd like to. We'd like this to be our thing.
Yeah.
So if you find this interesting, genuine, if you want to reach out and ask for tips about Guadeloupe or Thailand, we'd love to tell you all about it. We could talk for hours about it, but we try not to. Anyway, check this out. We talked for about an hour about Guadeloupe and our experience. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
I have a giant torso.
Jennifer has a large torso. Long? Large. I shouldn't say large.
Yeah, don't go.
Her torso's very long. This is a common thing. I'm sitting, and we're 5'7", both.
No, I'm 5'5".
When I'm standing, I'm taller than you. by an
Yes,
inch.
yes. But
5'6",
sitting,
5'7".
I will.
Isn't that
This Bruce.
strange? It's so strange. Slouch more.
Should I get you a pillow? Do you want a booster? I can get you a booster, see?
What are we here to talk about?
Guadeloupe.
Okay.
And you keep making podcasts without me, so I figured it's time for me to shove my face on the screen too.
Yeah, people keep asking, where's Jennifer? Actually, they haven't asked.
It's working, they don't care.
But, I think there's like a good dynamic between like two people being interviewed and one interviewer. Because like 4 people, I think like too much jumps in, over talking, things like that. So I mean,
I
kind of
agree.
like sticking with the 3.
Mm-hmm.
The menage a trois of
Oh.
podcasting.
Wow.
That just got weird. Sorry, everybody.
Saucy.
Everybody who I've interviewed so far, don't take that personal.
yes.
All right, we're talking about Guadeloupe. Yeah. So try to look at the camera when you talk.
Where's it
There.
up?
It's up there. Should I raise this up? Because we keep looking at ourselves. Maybe it's better if we don't even see ourselves as we're doing this.
No, I
We're
don't.
real experienced podcasters, you can tell.
Sorry.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think we have discussed following up on what we did a year ago. And
Yep.
since Facebook is reminding me of all of the amazing adventures we had a year ago, it seems like it's time that we share our story.
Yes, let's share our story.
Yeah.
And people seem to like the pre-Guadeloupe run-up podcasts, so we're kind of coming back around a year later and wanted to talk about all the places that we went to and all the things we did and saw, and also give advice of where to go, what to do, and how to do it. So where do we start? We start with recap. We dubbed it a Seabbatical. Aren't we creative?
Yes.
And we took 2 months. I took 2 months unpaid leave, and I tapped into some vacation I had at the end of the year. So we did a total of 2.5 months. Went to Guadeloupe, and then
to Thailand.
Yeah. And so we did Guadeloupe for 4 weeks. 2 weeks were supposed to be with my boys, supposed to join us. And one of them got really sick and couldn't come, which was super sad, and it was really hard that one of them could not come at all. And the older one came and had a great time. But then in the end, he actually said,
sailing's not his jam.
He wants to go snowboarding. And I get it. When you're young, you want to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And sailing is not necessarily fast. But it's adventurous. We had adventures. At one point, we were like heeled way over, and we were all hanging on for dear life.
Yeah,
that was exciting.
We cut our teeth that trip, that's for sure.
Yeah, we were going to talk about the winter winds later, the Christmas winds that whipped through there. Yeah, it was pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
So we start with, we departed from Greenville, South Carolina.
I think you should say how we ended up choosing Guadeloupe. Like, I think that's
Yes,
a
let's
good
do
start.
that. Yeah, so we chose Guadeloupe. We did a full search of the Caribbean and Sea of Cortez, and we were trying to find some place that we could afford, really, because we're going to be unpaid for 2 months, 2.5 months. She quit her job, which is insane, to do this. Insane, but worth it.
Totally.
Yeah. And so we were scouting out where to find a boat that we could afford for 4 weeks, because chartering a boat for 4 weeks is not cheap. Mm-hmm. And it came down to Sea of Cortez or Guadeloupe. And we, in the end, chose Guadeloupe. We were able to rent a 38-foot Beneteau. Totally friggin' awesome. We got it in Pointe de Pitre. Oh, by the way, we're going to butcher all the French names the whole way through this, so we apologize in advance. But we got it at the marina there for 4 weeks. Insanely enough, it was like $8,000.
Was it even that much? 5?
I think it was.
Was it 8?
No, maybe it was 8. Gosh, can we look back?
I know. I should have pulled out.
But it was in that range. It was in that range. It wasn't like outright. Like most charters, 1 week is $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like really nice that we were able to get 4 weeks at that price.
Yeah, and Sambo, which is
like
pretty crooked.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, what's new?
Terrible cheap readers.
But Sambo, right? That was such a, oh my God, help me.
Samboat.com is awesome. So we use Samboat. Samboat is a kind of like a Airbnb for boats, and we found it on there. Highly recommend it. Went very well. There was a little bit of like not great communication with the owner of the boat, but in the end it worked out really great. I mean, they had it dialed in. We met Fabrizio at the marina. He met us there, checked us in, went over all the stuff that you normally do when you're chartering a boat from like a charter fleet, which is great. He had a checklist and everything. It went really well. So yeah, that all went really smoothly. The marina was cute. The marina was extremely inexpensive. If you wanted to have a slip there year round, we learned.
So cheap. It was like $3,000 for the year.
For the year, if we understood him right.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Language barrier.
I'm not sure. I think we might have looked it up too, and it was that range, which is a great price for a marina. Yeah. Holy moly! In the Caribbean,
you got not a lot.
No. There was a nice side of the marina where the nicer yachts, bigger yachts, and everything. The amenities were definitely nicer, and then there's like another part of the marina, part of the same marina, but like around the bend and tucked away, and it was clearly not the high end side. I don't know what the high end side would have been, but we have a great video that does like a overview. Like we flew a drone up, and you can see that if you look back at our YouTube videos that we put up about that in Instagram videos.
Yeah, there were some dying boats there. And
there was 2 boats that caught fire. They had burned completely, and they were still like there, floating in there. We're fighting under the table with our knees and feet. So the marina was right actually where there was an aquarium also, which was kind of cool. And they had some nice little bars and restaurants, and we had some drinks there that was really nice. And we didn't discover until way later that we could walk all the way to this really nice, like the Walmart of grocery stores. When Fabrice told us the grocery store to go to, we still had a car for a day or two, and we drove over there, and we went to this little tiny like sundry shop, and we're like, this is the provisioning
Yeah.
restaurant or store that they told us to go to. And then we didn't discover for like days later that just right around the corner from there was this giant, like big time normal American grocery store that you kind of are used to being from America. If you're from America, if you're not from America, you know what I'm talking about anyway. Giant box stores. That was one of the things I was surprised about. When we flew in the airport, nearby there was a mall and a vibrant economy. Like, I couldn't believe how much was going on there. The mall was like not a small size scale that we're used to in like, American cities, but a pretty decent sized mall.
Massive grocery store
Right.
in there, lots of vendors. It was a really beautiful spot. We were able to get our cell phone SIM cards there.
Let's talk about the SIM cards then. Yeah, tell us about how we did that.
So I did a ton of research beforehand. Obviously, we were going to be gone that long, so we could not do the $10 a day that Verizon and AT&T and all the, like the other ones do. So we decided we'd SIM card. I was going to do the eSIM, which seemed to be the best bet and the easiest for what we were going to be doing, just to easily transition. But when we got there, he went with the regular traditional SIM, where we went into a store and they swapped it out. And the service was better. It was a little easier to deal with and much cheaper.
And we wanted to have both just in case one didn't work. At least one of us had a way to communicate.
Yeah. I mean, the eSIM works great, but it's definitely more pricey. The first time getting it set up was a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to be on good Wi-Fi. And we had to like hunt a McDonald's down is what we ended up finding that would have some Wi-Fi that we could use. But once we got it set up, it's good. But cost... comparison.
It wasn't so bad though.
No.
Like, you got how many megabytes for? Was it $6? €6 or $6? One megabyte.
One megabyte or 1 gigabyte.
1 gigabyte.
Should probably do our research before we podcast. But
it was reasonable, and we were able to do all the surfing and calling that we wanted to do.
And the same thing applied in Thailand when we got there. I started with the eSIM and realized I even paid for the eSIM, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've paid for the 1 gig or whatever it was, and quickly went ahead and switched to the traditional SIM card because it was so much more cost effective.
In the end, it was far less than what $10 a day would have been if we tried to stay with AT&T or Verizon International. So that's a good tip. If you're going to the Caribbean or going anywhere internationally, you can find eSIM now that just works very seamlessly on your phone. Or you can go the traditional way of like going to a store that's a cell phone store, and they'll hook you up with like a physical SIM. You swap out your SIM card that's in your phone for a SIM card that's a local thing. Yeah.
We shared zero language in both phone stores in both countries, and everything was handled seamlessly.
Google Translate app is awesome.
We didn't even need it. They just knew what to do.
We learned a lot of French words just from using the Google Translate app. It has a camera feature, and you can hold it up to menus or signs, or you can even have like people talking back and forth into it. It picks up your voice and translates instantly, which was super awesome. I know there's like apps out there that are coming on board that are instant translation apps too, but that was pretty vital. French Guadeloupe, not much English. They don't. They're not really catering to the English-speaking crowd. They don't care to. Nor should they. I mean, it's their country. They can do what they want. We tried to roll with that. In some cases, it would have made sense. Like, hey, you're in the Caribbean, which is near a lot of English-speaking, and also you're having international populations coming here. It seems like you'd be able to speak more internet. But we understand, totally understand. We don't like it when we go to other countries and people say, oh, they should speak English here. No, that's not the case. I mean, it's their country. They speak their language, and we try to adapt. So
I kind of liked it. I loved floating around in the anonymity of not knowing what was being said around me.
That adds to the excitement
the challenge,
of trying to figure it out. The challenge of traveling when you don't know what's going on. Yeah, but yeah, just be prepared that there's not a lot of English. So come with your translation apps if you need it, or learn some of the language.
All right. So beyond that, once we arrived, we had one night on land in an Airbnb, which was a great little spot we stayed in, and then
It got sketchy though for a minute.
We got lost.
And
it was dark. When
we went into a scary part of town, and we eventually found our way there.
Yes.
But and then he had a little puppy.
Yeah. That was very dominating.
It liked Jennifer's leg.
A lot.
That's all I'm saying.
We did not establish the alpha the way I would have liked.
But cute little place.
Yes. The Corgi one.
Yeah, I think we found that on Airbnb. There are plenty of Airbnbs that you can find, and we found that one for one night. really great host. It was really awesome. So and it worked for just one night. We needed it.
We checked into the sailboat and stayed in the marina for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, we were going to get provision. We were going to check out like just land-based travel to see what we could discover
Wait for
Angelo to come in. He's my older son because my younger son Rocco couldn't make it. So we took the rental car and we tried to drive a lot of the island. The first day we went north. So Guadeloupe is like a butterfly wings. There's like a left and right side of the butterfly. If you're looking at a map, we went to the right side of the butterfly first, kind of went up north. And what did we see there? The first little river there with the nice little
a lot
church.
of fishing little communities,
Yeah.
much probably a poorer side of the island, I would guess, just based on what we saw with the dilapidated buildings and the streets were struggling to be streets. And but beautiful, just charming, and lots of little nooks and crannies to tuck into. Really cool, having been to France and seeing, the cemeteries similar to that which you see in France and Paris. And
While you're talking, pull up the actual like places so we can tell people where we went. If they wanted to actually go there. So I got like a little map tracker that showed us every little town that we went to. But we went and ate nearby. Where the surfers,
beach.
There's a surfing community there too. Yeah, that was really cool.
It was like one place they got a decent break. I think they got consistent. It wasn't very big when we were there, but it was a nice little spot. We just plopped down, got a couple beers and some food, and watched the surfers. It was a cute little spot.
Yeah.
What's happening?
The waypoint tracker doesn't like really show me the names of the places. It just shows me where I dropped pins. So I want to actually go to where I can see the names of these places and actually tell people. So we went to Port Louis. Yeah, so that was in the north. We're going to butcher these names again. Plagues are Plage is, I guess, beach. But everything was plague there. So.
And watch for the shoots to cocos.
Shoots to cocos. That's falling coconuts. So yeah, we kind of drove up north, went to Port Louis. I think we stopped there. Had a really wonderful chicken and rice lunch.
So good.
And there was kind of a marina
Curry.
there. Yeah, a lot of surfers, which was awesome to see all the surfing happening there. From there, we drove to the northeast end of the island. Kind of came down and went to where there was like a lot of really big waves breaking in.
Not surfing waves.
Not surfing
Treacherous waves.
Yeah, it was
windward side of the island.
It was definitely
sure.
it was definitely a cool area to check out.
And while he's looking at his map, I'm going to tell you, foodies, Caribbean/French food, sweet baby Jesus. Go
Good
eat
food.
Go eat the entire island.
Yes. We had also lots of really great baguettes.
There's nothing cooler than
Sauce.
seeing people in the Caribbean riding around with bicycles and baguettes. Like, it just, I don't know. It was more European than Caribbean at times. And then other moments you were firmly in the Caribbean. It was very interesting. It messed with your brain quite a bit, but those baguettes were legit. Croissants.
The really giant waves that were breaking and pretty treacherous was Pointe de Chateau.
It's a beautiful spot.
Beautiful spot to go check out for sure. Drive all the way out there. It's all the way like on the main island, all the way to the east end tip. And then we drove back from there. There's a little regional airport that we were sharing with our friends because they're pilots. They, telling them to fly in there. There was a higher end, like more wealthy end of the island, we think, based on the grocery store we went to. It was very much more expensive, for sure. So then the next day we tried to explore the left wing of Guadeloupe. It's called Basse Terre. Definitely more remote out there. There actually aren't even buses really that go out there very often.
No, I don't think they go at all. I think the buses only go to the...
Oh, one tip. Taxis, very expensive.
We're better off renting a car.
Better off renting a car. At the marina, you can get a good price on a rental car. We did that several times. We'll talk about it later, but it cost us how much to get Angelo back to the airport?
140 euro.
140 euro for a taxi cab ride from where we were to get Angelo to the airport so he could get back to stateside. All right, so we then, when Angelo showed up, we had all provisioned. Fabrice helped us out of the slip. We went out. We were headed to the Saints first. The Saints are a group of islands that are south of Guadeloupe. So beautiful. The crossing, even though the weather looked like it was going to be reasonable with 15 to 20 knot winds, I think we were experiencing like 25 knot winds and very confused seas and raining at us, swelling at us. We say we cut our teeth learning to sail around Guadeloupe. I mean, we knew how to sail. We sailed other areas, but this was rough and confused, choppy seas. At times I looked at you and you had a little bit of panic looking on your face.
Well, I was braced for hours just sitting in the same spot waiting.
Yeah, from Point de Pitre to the Saints, it took us probably how many hours?
3
or 4 hours maybe to get there. We were reefed down at a point. And it was rough for sure.
And to compare that, when we left to come back, it took us an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it took us double what it should have taken us,
Yeah.
although the hour and a half was with those same winds at our back, blasting us back to the mainland or whatever, the main island.
Yeah, so the main, so Basse Terre and the other side, that's Guadeloupe, the main island, and then there's the Saints that are south, and that's a grouping of like 3 or 4 islands, and then to the east there's a Long Island, and then a smaller island that you can go to as well. So that's like the whole Guadeloupe area.
Marie Galante.
Yeah, and Marie Galante, which we loved. We'll get to that in a minute too. But so the Saints, we got in there. We anchored up on a mooring, or we got a mooring ball. The mooring field, we were a little bit further away than we wanted to be, so it was a bit of a rolling.
It's a very rolling night.
Yeah, so swells were coming around the north end and coming into that area, so it did get rolly. So the closer in you can get, the better to shore. The town there is so cute.
It's magical.
Yeah.
Something out of a movie. It all the red roofs, the charming European style open air restaurants, the shops, the beautiful linens of these beautiful dress shops just blowing in the wind. I think it's like a blue color they're known for there on their dresses. The beautiful little old ladies in the streets selling their oh God, what was the name of that little pastry? There was some sort of pie that they made. It was a sweet, but it had I don't know.
Coconut rum type.
Yeah, it was delicious, but it was because apparently the lore is that they would bake these when their husbands were out to sea as fishermen, and the smells would waft and lure their husbands back. So now, if everything is true that you read on the inner tubes, only widows are allowed to make these and sell these in the streets now. And they definitely were older women out there selling them, and they're delightful.
They're so delicious. And then they also sold like a savory thing as well.
Yeah, there was another woman selling something.
Yeah, delicious. So yeah, we tried to eat as much local stuff we could in all of our travels, especially Thailand, which we'll talk about in another episode. But there as well, we were trying to eat street food as we could. And then what did we do? We walked up to
Fort Napoleon.
No, was it called Fort Napoleon, or was his it was his wife?
I thought it was Fort Napoleon.
Fort Napoleon, up on the hill. He built it for his wife.
Okay.
Josephine. Wasn't Fort Josephine? Fort Napoleon.
Apparently we need to review our notes.
So we walked all the way up to the top of this overlook. It was really cool because there's some places you can stop where there's switchbacks, and you can see like Guadeloupe main island off in the distance. You can see boats coming across, which we were like, man, they're heeled over. And the whitecaps blowing through there with those Christmas winds. But then, up at the fort, it was really cool. There was like self-guided tours, there was museums, and there was also goats that were climbing up the side of the walls, which was really crazy how much they were able to cling to the side of these like just vertical walls. We saw some iguana. Yeah. And they had different exhibits in there between like whaling and boating.
A lot of nautical stuff. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, and it's beautiful grounds to just walk around. And the views back at the anchorage where we had our boat on a mooring ball was gorgeous. Some of the best photos we took, videos as well. That was really beautiful. Yeah. So that evening we decided to move then.
Yes, we went around the corner that night. We looked for some. We needed a good night's sleep. That was
So there's another island that's kind of right off the anchorage shore there, and we saw a bunch of people anchored there. We think that was a good anchorage. We never actually tried it, but then around the corner there's a big rock, and then around the corner you get tucked in there, but only like 4 or 5 boats can fit in there. But it was much nicer,
Still
much
not
more
great.
protected. Not great, but but better protected. Not as rolly, and the snorkeling was just amazing. We saw all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
We saw like eels and
kinds of tropical fish.
So much tropical fish.
It was a nice little spot.
Yeah, and different eels than I've ever seen before. They were like striped and spotted. I think I said seen spotted deals before, but there's just a wide variety of different sea life there, which was really perfect. And it was very calm, too, which made for good snorkeling. Then after that...
We talked back around onto the other side,
We went back around again, and I think we got even closer on a closer mooring ball, which was nice. Because we were there early enough, and people were leaving, so when we were there early, we could, grab one of their mooring balls as they left, basically.
Yeah.
So then from there, were you going to say something?
No, I was remembering as soon as we said that when we were in that particular spot. Do you remember it was the gentleman who was just like, had his entire family or something on the sailboat next to us, and he had this dinghy that wasn't it wood?
It was a little wood dinghy. He was a salty sailor, you could tell.
Yeah, and I mean, they loaded that thing up to the the edge of the dinghy was literally like flush with the water. It was like we were just waiting. Yeah, they were all dressed up to go into town.
If anybody moved, that thing was going to take on water and capsize.
Sneeze was going to end that ride.
We were fascinated while watching them go in and out because that little wooden boat with 10 people in there, it was down to the water's edge.
They were with their purses and their dresses and their heels.
Kudos to them.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's impressive.
It was.
I mean, they clearly knew what they were doing. He had lots of experience, you could tell.
Oh, yeah.
It was a beautiful scene to watch.
It was
I hope that one day I could be that salty.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's when we turned around and decided to head back.
We did actually go on shore another time with Angelo, and we did a hike around the other side of the island up to these, like, they look like battlements, like they were like, but they were like stone arches where you could like get in and tucked away from the weather, and it did rain on us.
Over there.
There was a bunch of goats over there, and a goat herder was walking around there. And then we kind of hiked back into another beach on the other side. And while we were going there, we saw the cutest little baby goat had just been born. It just dropped out. The umbilical cord was and it was crying for its mom. And it was that little island has so much to offer. Highly recommend going there. It's so cool to like kind of go all around. There's a little airport that was there too, which was really crazy because the airplanes look like they're going to crash into the buildings as they're coming in.
And we did go back. Like we just did a couple days there with Angelo. But it was so rolly. I think we decided to tuck back towards the mainland and get him.
So we tried to go back to the mainland, which was main island, Basse Terre. So we're coming around the west side of Basse Terre, which is part of the mainland island. And it looked like it'd be better protected from the Christmas winds, which we were searching out most of the time. And so we pulled into Basse Terre is like the main city on Basse Terre, the whole wing of Guadeloupe there. And there was a marina there, but that was Christmas Day, and there was nothing really open. But the adventure happened when we anchored at the evening when we were anchored there. These fishermen came out in the evening while we were having our sundowners, and there was probably 3 or 4 other sailboats there in this anchorage, just on hooks. We weren't like on a mooring ball. And we saw these 2 fishermen come out in the evening, and they laid down these nets. And these nets, they laid down, they're really long nets that stretch like almost a mile, it seems like. And they have the main line holds the nets underwater, but they attach the main line to like a gas tank that's floating or like some kind of floatable. And we're watching them lay, and we're like, they're really laying these things in between the boats. And we're like, the winds are pretty strong, and it's whipping us 365 degrees most of the time. So we're like, maybe they know what they're doing, that we're not going to get all tangled up in these lines. But sure enough, the next morning, we were really wrapped up in their lines. And they came out the next morning, and they're like trying to blame us for anchoring there. And we're like, no, we were here watching you lay that. And so
and by blame us, not in English and not in French. This was all hand signals.
Yeah, we could barely understand them, but they kept trying to come in close to deal with it. And at one point they rammed us, and we were like, I was like, get away, like back away, and I'll deal with this, with sign language, right? And so, but this whole time there's squall after squall coming through. It'd clear up for 5 minutes, and their squall would come through. So we're trying to wait that out, but they kept trying to come in to get their lines, and we're like, look, you keep running into this boat that is not our boat, and like you're going to cause us to like have to pay a damage deposit of $5,000. We're like, just stay away, I'll deal with it. So they started cutting the line of their line where it was attached. So I was like, okay, cutting the line is going to be okay, right? Yeah. So, but I ended up, I didn't have to cutting lines, but I did jump in with snorkel gear on, and I'm literally holding the boat with my one hand so that my head doesn't bang into the bottom of the boat, and I'm under the boat, and we have 2 rudders, and I'm like trying to unwind these lines as the boat is just bucking like a hobby horse. And fortunately, I got it all out. I had this big mess of line in my hand. I start swimming it out, and they start coming in again. And I was like, no! I was like, stay away. I'll bring it to you. Yeah. So I brought it to them, and then I threw it into their boat, and they were just like so grateful. They were like patting their chest
we
and
got
thank you.
a
You got a heart.
Yeah.
Thank you. And they went out. We just had to watch them as like rain was blowing through, double rainbows.
Double rainbows was magical.
Yeah, it was a magical day.
Christmas.
And it felt, I felt elated because we had solved that problem on our own and didn't have any issues and didn't die. Didn't break my neck under the boat, which could have been a very bad situation. But we watched them pull up all kinds of fish, and eventually they came back to the boat, and they were like signaling like how many people on the boat, and I was like 3, And so then they threw us 3 fish, and we're like, oh, so cool that they were so nice about that. Really and then they showed us that they caught a puffer that was like the size of Angelo. It was the biggest puffer fish I've ever seen. Yeah. But that was an exciting moment for sure.
Yes.
So from there, talk about where we went next, which is our favorite of all anchorages. All anchorages, favorite of all anchorages.
All I know is warm water. You have to tell me the name of it.
Bulliante.
Bulliante. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you guys. There is volcanic flow that comes from the mountains and feeds right into the ocean. And you can go there and float in the stream, you get in the current of the warm volcanic water, and then it kind of guides you out, and then you swim through the cooler ocean water back, and then you get in the volcanic water. And I stayed there for a long time.
And we went back, and we never go back to places over and over again.
We
went 3 times. We left and came back again. But this is not just a small little trickle of a stream. I mean, this is like a river.
You get caught in the current.
Yeah, it's running into this big bay. And we noticed that people would come and do that and just float in there, and it has minerals and
you can get to it by shore. It's right there. People park. There's a little park. There's a little restaurant right there.
Yeah, it was magical.
Oh my gosh.
And that little strip there was pretty nice. There was a fresh market there that we went to at one point.
A couple little cafes.
The cafes were glorious. Yeah, the coffee and the pastries, so good.
Yeah.
So Bulliante, look it up. West coast of Basse Terre, Guadeloupe, one of our favorite anchorages.
And that time of year too, it was probably the most protected one we had. I think we did drag there though, didn't we?
We did drag. There's this thing called katabatic winds.
We learned.
Yeah, and it's very mountainous. And the winds, with the different temperature changes between ocean and land, that's how wind is created. And so these katabatic winds will develop in the mountain and then rush down the mountainside and into the cove. And so it could get hairy. I mean, we had times when we felt like it was 30 to 40 knots of wind just blowing us. And, we had to reset our hook a few times. And at one point, Angelo, yelled at us. He's like, we're about to hit this boat. And I immediately ran, turned the engine on, was putting it forward while, pulling the anchor up. And
in the dark. Yeah, it was wild.
It was wild.
We had to reset twice that time because it was just so strong. We couldn't get a good hold. And it was late at night, so we couldn't swim on the anchor or anything to check it. So the
other thing that's nice about that anchorage is there's a point. So the anchorage, it kind of makes like a crescent moon, and out to both crescent moons, there was definitely beautiful snorkeling.
That's where we saw the octopus.
Yeah, Angelo found an octopus, and it was so cool because it was changing colors and everything. It was beautiful. That was a really nice place to snorkel out of those points. Snorkeling by shore, not so great with all that rushing river coming in there. It really kicked up a lot of stuff. It's still very clear, and you could see fish swimming around you as you're floating, but not great snorkeling other than seeing a few fish.
What was the thing I learned as a new international swimmer, diver, snorkeler? What the flag was not what I was expecting for a dive flag.
Yeah, so we're used to the dive flags that have like the red bar that goes, upper left, lower right. This dive flag is actually an international dive flag. It's blue and white. And there was a gentleman in a dinghy kind of driving around slowly with this flag, and he kept pointing down and pointing to the flag. And for a minute, it didn't register in my brain, and it took me a minute. I was like, oh gosh, that's the international dive flag. And so he was telling us to be careful dinghying to where he had some scuba divers in the water. So remember that, when you're international, there's a different dive flag. Look it up and make sure you know the flag.
What is he pointing at? I don't know.
So from there, we went up to Jacques Cousteau's
there it is.
National Park, underwater marine park. There's a really wonderful beach there, cove there, vibrant beach kind of shacks with serving crepes and shops to buy things. A lot of scuba goes out of there, and there's a constant ferries going back and forth to this island that's off of the mainland, which is where everybody goes to do the snorkeling and the scuba diving, and then they have the glass bottom boats. What did you see there that was amazing?
Turtles.
Yeah,
so many turtles. There were so many. It was fun. In one little snorkel session, I think we saw six or seven. It was fantastic. But we definitely have some pointers for that anchorage.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Me first? Okay, so first night, First of all, it's a very full anchorage, and I don't know if it's always that way. This was, again, the Christmas week, so I'm imagining it probably was extra busy then. People were anchored everywhere, and we anchored right in the mix of some boats. And when we woke in, we slept that night, we woke in the morning, their version of the Coast Guard or whatever was going from boat to boat to boat and eventually made their way to us. We were in an area that we were not supposed to be anchored. It was a protected area for the grass, for the turtles. Yeah. There was no grass where we put our anchors, just to be clear. We definitely checked all that out. And there were boats further into this thing than we were. We were very...
as close as we could get safety-wise, yeah.
Right. But we weren't as far into the field that's protected as they... So
it's not as well marked as you'd think.
No, like Navionics didn't have it.
Yeah, there were some yellow buoys that apparently makes a line, and you needed to know which side of that you needed to be on, and we thought we were on the right side of it and close enough in. But it wasn't clear, yeah.
And then, so we moved, and when we moved, we reset the anchor, and you could see there was an area where the ferries went in, and we made sure we were far enough on the other side of that. And we anchor, we get in our dinghy, and we start going to shore, and these people are flagging us down. I'm like, what in the world now? And somebody spoke English in that bunch, and they yelled from land that we were not allowed to be anchored where we were there. Again, not marked, not on Navionics, not on any of the... Did you try any other?
I looked everywhere, and it was not marked at all.
And there were other boats there. We weren't the only boat there.
So we got yelled at.
Yeah.
So we moved again.
So, that was a challenging spot. And... the first night before we got moved by the Coast Guard, why don't you tell them what you saw?
So this was probably one of the craziest things we saw, and got real nervous about it. First of all, the Katabatic winds again, blowing through there like crazy at night, so much that it was whistling through the stays, the cables that hold the mast up, and it was so loud and uncomfortable and scary, and we were afraid we were going to drag anchor, and so we were both like kind of taking turns, like trying to get an hour or two of sleep while the other one was up on deck just keeping an anchor watch and watching to make sure. So anyway, it was like 2 a.m. and winds are blowing like crazy, and I started to notice that like the catamaran that had come in next to us was moving. It wasn't in the same place, and then I noticed that it started to move further and further, and I'm like kind of freaking out, and I mean it was gone that fast, and I'm yelling down to Jennifer to come up here so that I can run downstairs and get on the radio. By the time she gets up there, she can't even see it anymore. And it had drifted out to where the island was and past the island. No lights on, no anchor light. Nothing. We were freaking out. I'm about to start calling Mayday, and as soon as I start to call Mayday, she's like, "Hold up, the lights just came on." I mean, this thing went from next to us to out in the shipping channel. And there's nothing beyond that. I mean, you're going to be out to like deep ocean. You're on your way to like Mexico at that point. I mean, it was crazy how fast that went. Yeah. I mean, the winds were so strong. And so lesson learned there is put down enough anchor chain.
Yeah, we noticed when they came in, we kind of had commented on it. They came in hot, dropped an anchor, and 2 seconds later they were on a dinghy and gone off to shore. Yeah. They did nothing to make sure anything was set, hooked,
They didn't put enough anchor out, enough anchor chain rode. They didn't back down on it. They just dropped anchor and went. And then that's what happened. They ended up dragging anchor, and because of the steepness of the underwater, underground, you're going to be, the anchor's going to pick up, and there's nothing for it to dig into because now you don't have enough anchor down, enough line down.
They're just lucky they didn't hit the Jacques Cousteau Island.
They're lucky they weren't on the rocks. They're lucky they didn't get hit by maybe boats that were traveling at night because they had no lights on. Nothing. You wouldn't have seen them. It was so dark. So that was sketchy and scary.
It was. We learned all the things in 1 month.
Yeah. But that area for snorkeling and scuba diving was magical.
Yeah, little beach scenes, fun,
music. So clear. Mm-hmm. The island that's offshore, that's the Jacques Cousteau Island, they had, it was really kind of cool because we were snorkeling and I was diving down deep, free diving, and there were people in boats that were glass bottom boats, and they're waving at me and I'm waving at them, and that was kind of cool.
And I think they must feed the fish from those boats because they were just congregated and you could just swim through the fish. They weren't afraid of you at all.
So much fish all around you all the time, which was super cool. Angelo even said that was the best snorkeling he's ever been, and we've taken him a bunch of places snorkeling. Yeah. So, yeah.
Also, the Jacques Cousteau statue.
Yeah, there was a Jacques Cousteau statue that I swam down to and took a picture
with. You really need to be a diver, but somehow he can keep those ears from blowing out. Mine would have exploded.
That was a deep one.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how far that was down. I went a long way down to get to that, and I immediately ran out of air because I'm not experienced as a free diver. So I can only get down there, get a picture real quick, and get back up.
Yeah, it was very cool, though.
So we also, was it there that we went, or was it back at Bulliante? We went back to Bulliante and we hiked up to another point
Yes.
that was super cool because it was really high, very rocky, steep cliffs, and you hiked around to a tree and you could see each other like across this like really deep
Yes.
cliff. And there were some
Cannons, some old cannons.
Old cannons were up
Must
there.
have been an old.
Yeah. And you saw a dog?
Oh God, I was just wandering by myself, being the little hippie that I am, loving nature, and there's like a growling dog chained to a tree with not a soul around.
Didn't see anybody for a
no,
while.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
So I slinked back.
I think
to where
eventually
the boys were.
I think eventually we heard somebody, so we figured it was their dog, so we didn't abandon it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it looked like it was well fed. It wasn't clearly.
No,
abandoned.
it wasn't starved, but I mean, it was a chained up, angry dog in a bush.
Kinda scary.
I gotta go.
Yeah. So on our way back from Jacques Cousteau's, we stopped halfway between Jacques Cousteau and Bulliante because we had to get back to Bulliante
Yes.
one last time. But halfway between was this little tiny inlet. It seemed like a dinghy anchorage, very small. There was probably like 50 dinghies packed in there.
Yes.
And we could go on shore and we could get water. And we also could get some food.
We went to a little food truck that was amazing.
There's a grocery store there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nice place to provision again on our way back. And we had to get back to Bulliante because we figured that was the best place to get Angelo a taxi without too much confusion and get him back to the airport because by this time it was time for him to start heading back.
Yes.
Yep.
And we needed another good night's sleep because there were no good night sleeps at the Jacques Cousteau.
Bulliante was definitely better protected and less katabatic winds than at Jacques Cousteau's anchorage, which, at that time of year, December, January, a lot of that going on.
And
Warm water.
Warm water.
It was super warm.
Who would think that you would want that? But it just was so nice. And then there's all these cool little iguana coming out and catching sun right there along the mouth of the river. It was a very, very cool spot.
So after Angelo left, we decided to make our way back to the Saints, and our goal was to make it to Maria Galante, which was past the Saints, east of the Saints, and about a 4 or 5 hour supposed to be cruise. We stopped in the Saints for one night or 2 nights.
We were there a couple of nights because it was New Year's. We decided we wanted to stay there for New Year's.
Right. Yeah, and
the
New Year's
party animals that were not.
We are not. Couldn't make it. But the vibrancy of that little island of the Saints is so cool. There's beautiful music being played from shore.
Such an interesting place.
You made it to midnight, and they had quite a fireworks display, right?
They really did. No, so I fell asleep, but I woke up at midnight and heard the fireworks and watched them from
Somehow
the boats.
I slept right through it.
He's night-night. Couldn't even wake him up. Shook him and everything. He was night-night. But it's such an eclectic mix of people. The beautiful little cottages, their colorful doors. It was like we sat in this one little spot on the main drag having a beer that night, and just the mix of people, like young men sitting with their music and the park benches, definitely drunk, just having a night together with their boys. And then a few minutes later, some little kids hand in hand, like brothers and sisters, maybe 8 to 12 years old, walking down the street. And then the next thing would be a woman dressed up for New Year's in her beautiful sequin dress. And then the next, I mean, there was a schizophrenic guy in that mix too. He was talking to himself and he'd duck in the alley and he'd come back out. He was a schizophrenic or on some really good stuff. But regardless, it was the best people watching. One of the experiences we had there, a gentleman was just walking around with an acoustic guitar singing Christmas carols in the grocery store, even on New Year's Day. It was hysterical. We're just in there and he comes in and everybody starts singing along with him. It's such a bohemian vibe, but also European. That place felt more European than Caribbean to me by far. Super cute, super fun.
I'm trying to find the name of the restaurant we went to. We went and ate at this tapas type of place. We treated ourselves
the last night we were there.
The last night we were there to this very nice. Is that it there?
I have it in my. Yes,
that's it. Les Balancures. Yeah, I don't know how to say that.
Stunning tree going straight, open air tree growing right up through the middle.
It's also our Wi-Fi haven.
Yes. We sat on the beach and used their Wi-Fi a couple of times. We felt like we should patronize them. Watch as we were doing that. Little chickens were running down the beach. Where else are you going to see chickens running down the beach?
Nice.
Such a great meal, great drinks. Oh, the dessert was phenomenal, of course.
So we're already 40 minutes in, so we need to get to Maria Galante because that was one of our favorite places. So we left the Saints. We went around the south end, and we were told to head towards Domenica and then tack. So you only have to do one tack back to Maria Galante. So we were heading to Dominica in that direction for a long way because we were going upwind. So we were on a close reach and then sometimes beam reach. But we tacked too early, and then we had to tack a bunch to get there. And eventually we gave up on tacking because we weren't making headway, so we decided to motor sail. But we come into St. Louis, Maria Gallant. There's two major places you want to go to anchor or anchorages or mooring balls. So one is St. Louis, which is the northwest end, and then down south, what was the name of that? Town's like the main port. It's the only marina down there actually on Maria Gallant, which we didn't go to. We heard it wasn't great to go to. And there's only like very limited people could get inside the marina.
Very small.
Yeah, but that was like the main city down there. So we came into Maria to St. Louis, loved it. A lot of boats there though, but it was okay. They spread out really well. But we went on shore. We rented a scooter multiple days. We scooted all over the island, and that is a gem. It's a flat pancake kind of island, not as mountainous, but there were some times where it's kind of mountainous. Yes. The north end has this natural arch kind of hole grotto that you can see from above, very huge. That was beautiful.
The nice thing about scootering that island is the signage. They did a great job. Even if you can't read the signs, the brown signs are some sort of tourist interest. And the roads aren't great, but everything, I never felt unsafe except for the one road you picked with the dogs that were chasing us.
Dogs and windmills.
But yeah, if you find a brown sign, check it out because there's a lot of history, a lot of beautiful things to see there. Yes, there used to be big sugar plantations there. So it's the rum capital of that area.
Yeah.
R-H-U-M.
Strong rum.
Yes.
Very strong rum.
Yes.
What was the rum that I liked so much?
Zipper busting.
There was a zipper buster rum.
Yes.
The guy that was doing the tastings, not a lot of English again, but he kept trying to describe it. This was an aphrodisiac rum, and he kept trying to describe it as a zipper buster. And what did he say?
After 14 minutes, you're dead.
After 14 minutes, you're dead. And then you're dead.
And then you're dead. So
whatever that means.
We didn't try it.
But no, we did try it.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, of course we did. I think we even bought a bottle, didn't we?
No.
No, we didn't buy a bottle of that. But we
tried that one, didn't we? Oh, okay.
We didn't try the really expensive one till later, the honey one, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that was so good. It was called
Belvedere.
Belvedere rum distillery. Highly recommend that. We circumnavigated the whole island with scooters. A little bit of difference everywhere. The far east end was beautiful, but very much like high seas. That's where the windsurfers were really kicking it.
And that area was kind of the street art. I can't even describe the street art. People have painted murals. The outsides of buildings and things, but the buildings themselves are in disrepair. And I'm not sure that, they had a pretty gnarly hurricane that year before we went, or no, a few months before we went, they had a nasty hurricane. So I don't know if that was the results of that hurricane or if it's just a mess there or if there's been multiple storms that have, wrecked that place. But you walked around and it felt a little ghost towny. There wasn't a lot going on at that side of the island, but the art, it's worth just riding around looking at the art on the walls.
The name of that town is Capesterre. Capesterre. Really beautiful anchorage. Or not anchorage, place to go visit. I wouldn't anchor there.
No,
the main town is Grand Bourg.
Their market on the weekends is something you must see. Yeah. These women are dressed in the most colorful clothing, and they're oh my gosh, the spices and the different foods. I wish I could remember what that fried thing was called that lady talked you into getting. That was so good. But there was this one lady, she had to be like 95 years old in this beautiful red dress and some Chuck Taylors, and she just spent like 4 hours shelling some kind of plant, and I was obsessed just watching her. I'm like, how are her fingers even doing that at this stage of life? But beautiful, bright art, very Afrocentric arts. A lot of history there. I think there probably was, I don't know, with the sugar plantations, I imagine there's a history of slave trade there or something that probably brought a lot of that culture along with them. But what a neat market to explore.
Oh, it was great. So we circumnavigated that. We tried to hit every road we could on scooters, sometimes going down some pretty rough roads and to where dogs were chasing us. Which
and there
was
were
crazy.
pigs on ropes.
Yeah, there were a lot of pigs on ropes, a lot of cattle. They have ox cart racing there. We never saw, but we were trying to see.
Yeah.
I think we didn't hit it at the right time. But they actually have ox cart tours as well. But overall, it's a sleepy kind of island, which was wonderful. We loved that. A big tip, where St. Louis is, if you go kind of south of there around the point, there's a long beach, probably 3 miles long. And there, at times, there's only 2 3 at max other people anchored there. And it's a great anchor, just protected. And we could go ashore, and it was the most beautiful,
5-mile
pristine,
beach.
3 to 5 mile beach, pristine, palm trees, and nobody on this stretch of beach. And we would walk it all the time. What was really odd there was these birds that would attack the dragonflies. There's giant dragonflies everywhere. The birds would attack the dragonflies and pop their heads off, and eat just the heads but leave the bodies. So you'd see decapitated dragonflies everywhere, but big ones. Like one of them landed on my chest and was like that big. It was crazy.
If you do choose to anchor there, definitely check it out. There is a sunken boat there in pretty shallow waters that I think can be pretty treacherous. We were warned about that, so definitely look that up. But I think the highlight, or one of the highlights of that trip we must talk about, or that island, is one of our last nights there. We were strolling around with our Google Translate app open. You know, the restaurants, very limited menus because they can only get so much in the way of supplies there. So they would have their menus on like chalkboards or whiteboards out front of their restaurant before they opened. And we were going around using our Google Translate to read so we could prepare for, deciding which restaurant we wanted to eat at, because they're not open midday. You either get lunch and then there's a break and then there's dinner again. So we were wandering around, and as we're doing that, this gentleman pops his head out, and he could have been his cousin. And he's like, do you guys speak English? And he starts talking to us. Alejandro was an Italian gentleman who'd been living on Marie Gallant for some time now. He was a chef, and he was fantastic. He's like, I'm going to put you guys at the best table. Y'all come back here later.
Yes.
And we did.
The best table was right next to him cooking.
Right. Yes, and he kept bringing us amazing food.
The name of that place was La Baleine Rouge, which is basically the red whale.
So
highly recommend.
Delicious.
Yeah.
The food, what they did with minimal ingredients, homemade gelatos, it's French, the wines, the bread.
So good.
So delicious.
Also, major tip for cruisers, they'll let you fill up your water there in containers. And at first they said 25, and I was like, oh, okay, geez, €25, whatever. No, it was 25 cents.
Yes.
And we filled up an amazing amount of water.
Yeah.
So highly recommend if you need water, check them out and
They
ask
have a
them.
hose
They have
right
a hose
there.
that'll you can dinghy right up to shore and turn the hose up, fill
Mhm.
containers. Yeah, that was so awesome that they did that, and we were so grateful. And we were like, hey, I think he wanted a ride back, and we were gonna give him a ride. Timing didn't work out. Yeah, so. From there, we went north one more anchorage, spent the night at what looked like a really cool protected anchorage. We thought the snorkeling would be better, ended up not being that great. But from there, we got a great angle back to Pointe de Pitre, which is where we had to return the boat. And it was a downwind sail. And even though the seas were pretty big, it was very comfortable. And that's what we realized, this is what sailing is.
Yeah.
It seemed like the rest of the time we were there, we were always beating into the wind.
No matter which way we pointed, we were in the
getting
wind.
trashed. But that was wonderful. It was downwind back to Pointe de Pitre.
But we need to shout out our friends who invited us on the boat.
Oh, that's right. They invited us onto the boat. Spring Tradition was the name of their boat. And they were so wonderful. The cruising community is so great with inviting people you barely know to come on their boat, have a sundowner, and we thought we'd just go for an hour. We ended up there for 3 or 4 hours just chatting, and they were serving us, charcuterie board,
telling us the story of how they got their lagoon during COVID time, sight unseen. Yeah, they did that as snowbirds. They just came down and...
Yep, so they are from New Hampshire, and they have a 42-foot lagoon, I think it was. It seemed a lot bigger than 42 foot. It was so wide and so beautiful and gorgeous, yeah. But they were so wonderfully nice, and we emailed them recently saying, hey, we're going to BVI's, might you be in the area? And we just picked up we had just hung out yesterday. It was so cool.
Love the sailing community.
Yeah, love it. So back to Pointe de Pitre, we went back into the marina early, a few days early, to get situated.
Yeah. Couldn't get a rental car. They were all booked this time, so we just spent a few days on foot.
Yeah.
On foot.
We hiked 25 miles one day.
Until we learned on the very last day that you can catch the bus for $2, €2.
Yeah, in that area.
Yes.
Near Pointe de Pitre, which is the main town. That's their capital. They do have a lot of buses running, and it's very cheap and very convenient and very safe. And we didn't realize that. But we wanted to kind of hike the shoreline. We were trying to go up to this castle or fort.
It was a fort.
And we got all the way up there, and then it said closed for 2 days for renovations or something,
which was not listed online.
Yeah, and then we started, and we were sweating like crazy at that point. The video's funny because we just looked like we were ragged. But then we turned around and we saw an arrow pointing down to a beach, We hiked down to it. It was magical and
Oh, it
secluded.
was.
It had a
Beautiful little swing.
Yeah. And then from there, we just started hiking the shoreline, and we went through like what seemed like
Like a Spanish neighborhood.
Hispanic,
yeah.
a Hispanic
Uh-huh.
community.
Mhm.
They looked like they got washed out from the recent
There's
rains.
so much flooding.
But they had created some pathways that were kind of bermed up, and there's a hiking trail you could see online, and it went over some wooden bridges that they just
Mhm.
built, and it took you through kind of like the mangroves. And we just kept following it because it looked like online you could follow this trail. And we ended up at like this little resort that had like a little sea airplane, gorgeous little resort. And then we just kept following that. We walked by a
Mhm.
casino that we couldn't get into because we didn't have our passports. Carry your passports if you want to get into a casino. But then we went to like a shoreline area that had all these little cafes right on the beaches.
Yes.
And you're staring out at this little island, and it was so magical.
Mhm.
We loved that area.
Well earned. I think we were 8 miles into our trek at that point when we decided to sit down and have some drinks.
I got to give you the name of that.
Yeah, that was so cool.
So that was Les Gaussières. Beautiful little area to go to. Highly recommend Le Gaussière.
It was touristy,
Gaussière.
but it's a fun touristy vibe. Lots of like live music, stalls. People had built little like restaurant stalls with some shade and some chairs right on the beach. You could rent jet skis there. There was a lot happening, but it was fun and the food was great. And the gentleman there, I think he actually spoke English. That was one of the times we had an English server. He was really cute.
Yeah,
he was really fun.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting near the end of it, but we really skipped over a whole part about exploring the rainforest and the waterfalls and the trails. So before we ever went sailing, when Angelo showed up, we still had the rental car. We actually took the rental car and kind of explored Basse Terre, which is more remote, mountainous. We went to different waterfalls. We hiked up to some of the biggest waterfalls. They call them chutes, Chutes. But Angelo dove in one of the waterfalls. Just magical. It's so lush and green at times in some parts of it, and other parts is more like arid. Yeah. But yeah, different. So much to see in Guadeloupe. Variety of landscapes. The sailing, maybe not at wintertime might be better. Definitely those Christmas winds that people talk about are real.
They suck.
Some people were saying, I don't know if this is true, but some people were telling us, the Christmas winds can come on for 2 weeks and just literally shut off and be done. We must have been there during all of that because it never shut off.
For 4 weeks they were there.
It never really shut off. And it was high winds and confused seas at times. And the current whipping between Les Saintes and the mainland, the main island was pretty intense. So definitely try to sail downwind as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you're more comfortable.
Yeah.
So what else is there to say about Guadeloupe?
I don't know. I think just be willing to sort of tuck into the places. That's where we have found the most magical spots on our travels. Is
always go off the beaten path.
Yeah, to see that road, it looks cool. Take a left.
Take a left down that road that you just were
we
driving
ended up
by.
on a black sand beach one day, and it was
There's a surfer out there by himself on a black sand beach. Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty beautiful.
Yeah, and the big banana plantation down there.
Yeah.
We kind of walked through that a little bit. It was right there on the black sand beach.
There were some trees that you could walk inside of that were really beautiful. Yeah, that's all kind of there's a road you can take around the south of Basse Terre, which is the left side wing, and you can drive all the way over to Basse Terre, which is the town that's Basse Terre, which is pretty cool. There's a good marina there too, actually, if you need to get into a marina. That's where the ferries go too. Yeah,
take you to Les Saintes and Marie Galante, which also, if you're just going there without sailing, the ferry system's really good. It's very affordable. It'll drop you off on all these little islands. I don't think there's a lot of places to stay on any of the little islands, so make sure if you're going to go that way that you have your stuff booked, because I don't feel like there would have been a lot of options in all of those places. But yes, it's magical. It's a step back in time. It's a step back in history. The food's amazing. The people were pretty friendly overall. Highly recommend it.
Use Toto's scooters on Marie Galante.
Yeah,
that guy was
a good
awesome.
Dude.
Really positive, good energy.
And eat out what is it? Rouge.
La Baleine Rouge.
The red whale.
La Baleine Rouge.
Yeah,
very awesome restaurant in St. Louis or St. Louis. Yeah. So there's a lot more we probably could talk about, but we've gone on almost an hour now. Yeah. I'm gonna splice in some videos and pictures in this video or this audio video podcast. Our next podcast we're going to do, we'll talk all about Thailand. So that was the second part of our sabbatical. Took us 7 flights.
7 flights.
7 flights to go from Guadeloupe to Thailand, flying back through the States. And there's a whole reason for that, which we'll explain later.
Yeah, that might be more than one podcast. We were there for 6 weeks.
And
That's
there was
going to
a
take
lot.
some talking.
There was so much that we did. So anyway, all in all, what an amazing experience.
Very difficult to condense into an hour, but yeah.
Truly. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you joining me today to talk about Guadeloupe.
Oui.
Oui.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye, y'all. Please subscribe. Check out other videos that pop up in these places. I don't know where they are. I'm going to pick her nose real quick. Get in there. Get in there. Ricky. Bye, y'all. Thanks. Okay, y'all. We are wrapping this show up. If you like this format, you should like and subscribe. And we will do Thailand in the same way. But it's going to be a lot, so maybe we'll break it up over 2 episodes. Thanks again. Ciao.